All right, we're here with Rachel Antoinette Boyce, who is an associate at Cooley, who has worked from going from LLM to LLB to an associate at Cooley, and she is doing she's a transactional attorney. She's focusing on financings, acquisitions, ventures, purchase to sales, etc. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you so much for attending the symposium and agreeing to take part in this. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I just wanted I think the transition is LLB, LLM, and then all of
Oh,
these other
sorry,
things.
sorry.
Don't even worry about it, but all good. I'm really happy to be here and happy to be taking part in this presentation.
Fantastic. All right, so we've got a few questions, but one thing I was curious about is so you were one of the people featured in the Law 360 video, which really inspired me. Once I got the idea to do the symposium, and I went and I Googled and I tried to research, that video was the first thing I saw. So you were one of the first people to really inspire this symposium. So thank you. Thank you for what you said on there. Thank you for being you. Um, how did you take part in it? Like, how did it come about? If you
Yeah,
don't
I
mind
mean,
speaking about that.
yeah, I mean, it really came out as a beautiful video. And I was actually thinking about that today because to be very honest with you, when they first came out with the idea, the editor, she had reached out and she had reached out to a friend of mine who agreed. So two of the individuals in the video are actually like my friends, they're lawyers. We hang out and they had taken part in the video and sent my name as another person that had natural hair. And I had said, no, I'm like, I am not doing this. And the editor, she called, she followed up, she sent reminders. And I honestly, initially, I was afraid to do it or just didn't want to because I'm like, here it is, we're doing another conversation about blackness, black hair, black clothing, black whatever, what's going to change, right? And I just wanted to be so intentional with my time and not necessarily be involved in these activities which create a conversation and then there's no action behind it, right? And then I looked more into the act and I had discussed it with my friends and I'm like, you know what, let me do this. Let me do this. This might be just one of those things that really allows us to move the needle a little more. And I was actually very impressed with, the attention that it got. I've been invited to so many panels after that video and people were genuinely curious about it and, wanted to have more conversations about how, being black as a black woman included, your hair, right? It's just not the color of your skin, but your hair is a part of that. So in the end, I'm very happy I did it. And I'm really happy with the attention that it has received.
Yeah, it's a really well done video. It's short. Though my only complaint is that it wasn't longer. I mean, it didn't. I could have watched, another like hour of, people speaking on it. So, but it was very good. All right. So, one of the questions I have for you is like, between law school and now, what have been the biggest changes in how you wear your hair?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, in law school, I definitely wore my hair pretty natural. I went to Berkeley Law and it's a pretty chill, liberal, type of school. And so I never felt like uncomfortable wearing my hair in its natural state, right? In law school, just as a practical matter, I did hairstyles that were easy because I did not like to wake up every day and have to fluff a puff or have to like pull my hair back in a ponytail. Those things just take, natural hair. An extra 15, 20, sometimes 45 minutes trying to get your hair in order. So I did a lot of like, even natural hair braids, right? So I would braid my real hair and have a style that would last me a week. And then, sometimes I would do protective styles, braids or something like that, but not because I didn't like wearing my natural hair, just, especially the final semester, studying for exams, studying for the bar. As a practical matter, I just did not want to commit the time to doing my hair every single morning or making sure that it looked a certain way. So And that was law school. And I think when I transitioned into my first job, I definitely paid more attention to my hair. I took the time then. I would wake up every morning and I would pull it back in a ponytail. I would wear it straight at times. There was one time in particular that I had worn it straight, and I think that was actually when I took my firm photo. So in my first job, I took a firm photo, and I wanted my image on the website to be that of like straight hair, and it's long and it's all whatever. I thought about that, and as I transitioned into my second firm, I said, I will never do that again, right? Like I'll never go through the process of, not that there's anything wrong with having a style which is straight for a temporary time. I think that's okay if that's what you choose to do. But my decision behind that was to present myself as something other than myself. It wasn't a protective style that day. It wasn't something that I was trying to do because I just wanted to be cute. I really wanted to present myself in a way that looked, corporate or professional. And so I had to challenge my own thoughts. And by the time I was transitioning into my second firm, I'm like, I'm going with my hair like this. If you look at my firm photo, it was at the time I was experimenting with color. And I'm like, I'm going to have my hair dyed. It's a little brown and it's out. And I want my clients to see that. I want my teammates and my fellow attorneys to see that, they're not seeing a different person. This is who I am, and I'm going to wear that proudly. And I've been doing that, since, moving over to my new firm.
So there was a difference between, or was there a difference between how you wore your hair when you interviewed for the first firm and when you interviewed for the second firm?
Yeah, so I think when I interviewed for the first firm, I was probably, I think I was studying, it was like during that time I was studying for the bar. So I probably didn't, do much, like however my hair was and whatever protective hairstyle, I think I had it pulled back actually. I remember that day. And I just presented myself, wore a suit, all these things that you'll do. For my second firm, I think my hair was also a little bit pulled back because it wasn't like I took the day off, right? I had left and ran across. I mean, the two firms were actually across the street from
Okay.
each other. So I had ran across the street in like my lunch break for, some personal business, right? And so however I would have shown up at work was how I showed up for this interview, because I was coming from the office, and I just, wore my hair like that. But I didn't know that I had started to like wrestle with like how I wanted to present myself in the future. And it was very like strong on my mind, like moving forward, you need to do things that are more intentional. And you also need to do things that don't harm you, right? Like the constant protective styles, or putting pressure on your hair via heat, or relaxers. All of these chemicals are so damaging for your hair, for your body, for your entire, for us. And so I just wanted to be a little bit more careful as to, things I was doing to harm myself because I wanted to present a certain way. So yeah.
Okay. And so what is your go-to style when going to court?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. And I'm a transactional attorney. So for me, court is like the negotiation table, like I don't go
Okay.
to court a ton, not a lot. But when I am showing up at the negotiation table or having some dialogue with opposing counsel in person, I show up like this, right? Because this is part of like my identity and who I am. I think generally I try not to do things that bring too much attention, just because I don't want to have any unnecessary conversations about certain things. When I show up, my client has a particular purpose in mind. We want to achieve certain things, and I am usually uber focused on getting the job done. And so anything I can do to eliminate distraction or unnecessary small talk about certain things, I'll probably do that, right? So I do have an appreciation for colors. I love it, but not every time I would present with like, or show up with like colors, because I just don't want that to even be a topic or something talked about or discussed. I just want to, show up and be able to advocate for my client as best as possible based on the things that we set out to achieve on whatever we're negotiating. So I think for the most part of myself, it also depends on where I am, right? Very different in California versus like a New York negotiation or an East Coast negotiation. I think, each coast takes on a culture of its own, and even with how you dress or appear, there just could be things that you think about, but I try as best as possible to be true to who I am and wear my hair natural and just be comfortable. That's also really important for me, like being comfortable.
Yeah. So there's some people that are really uncomfortable with wearing their hair. I've seen posts on Fishbowl and online, um, and some of the posts go something like this. I'm interviewing for this. I'm between styles. I'm transitioning, and or we're having our firm photo taken. And so there's a lot of anxiety and I'm guessing most of these people are women, and from the context of the conversations I've seen, they tend to be Black women, working in law firms. So what do you think the difference is between you, someone who's very comfortable in their own skin and their own hair, and someone who is not, someone who's more probably, I'm guessing, new to the profession? Like, how would they make the leap from where they are to being comfortable, um, you know, in their own skin, with their own profession, with their own sort of knowledge, etc.?
Yeah, I think that is such a good and then very important question. And I think it could show up, differently for different people at different times. I think, just with respect to me, the first thing is that I made a decision to show up in a very authentic way, right? And again, not a way that necessarily brings a lot of attention, because personally for me, that's not what I'm going for, but I just wanted to be myself. I wanted to not cause further harm to just the breakage and the constant trimmings and just the it hurt, like putting relaxers, it burns your scalp and it's flaky, and it's just like, this cannot be it. Like this just cannot be it. And I just was more intentional about it, and went about things in that way, and also seeking out roles or being in places where I could be comfortable, right? So when I was actually interviewing for my current firm, I remember the topic of diversity was so important for me. And it also included hair, right? Like, how were other Black attorneys showing up, right? How did they feel? Were they comfortable? Were they supported? And that answers to those questions were really important for me, knowing that my intention was to show up in a certain way and I wanted to be comfortable. I think another really important point is that things can change over time, right? I really understand the law school student or the first year associate who is new to the job. And so they don't really have the confidence. They haven't put in the work. They haven't done anything to really be like, I'm just going to do or present myself how I want to be presented, right? Like, when you're that young in your career, you tend to kind of go with the flow or go with whatever the norm is, because you want to, show up and just have a place before, other things like your hair or the way you're carrying yourself become a topic. And so I do think that what I've seen with my friends and peers is that as you start to transition to mid-level to more senior associates, and you're doing the work and your work is speaking for itself, you're less concerned about, your appearance, right? Because you are showing up, your colleagues respect you, they respect your work, they know that you are a great value add to the team. And so whether I show up with my hair in a ponytail or this really shouldn't matter, because I've proven to you year after year after year that I'm doing what it takes or what it should take to stay here. And that's the work, right? All these other things are just really distractions. So I think those are two really important things. And then I think, it's really important to highlight that insecurity is a real thing, right? And I just can't emphasize enough that any conversation at law firms, at, in schools, wherever, around diversity needs to include the way Black women show up, right, with their natural hair, right? We talk so much about skin color, and not just Black women. I've seen discussions about Black men as to, how long should their hair be? Like, how low should the cut be? Should they have, can they have dreads or locks or whatever, and can they have a beard? I literally saw a whole thread in a Black legal group I was in recently about things, and a lot of people basically said, like, as a first year, you don't need that attention, you don't need those questions, you don't need to do all of that, but when you get more senior, then you can figure out what works best for you, and you can try to adapt to the culture of your firm. So I think when we have more conversations about retention and Black associates, it can't just be about creating that safe space. It's also creating a space where we can show up as our true authentic selves, and that includes our hair.
Okay. All right. And then our last question. So when you were studying for the bar, what was your hair care routine like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if I remember correctly, it was very much of the protective style. I was studying all day, and I knew that the bar was like one and done. I was not willing to take the bar a second time. So I just was not committed to spending more time than I had to on my hair. And I do remember like having the braids, having a weave. I had a friend who would help me out, every so often. And that's what I did. But I think that was more about just as a practical matter, how I can save time, how I could save energy, how I could just focus for those 2 months on what was really important. And that's how I wore my hair. And then, as time went on, things changed, but definitely for the bar, I was a protective hairstyle type of person.
Excellent. Rachel Antoinette Boyce, thank you so much. And thank you for speaking at the Big Black Hair Big Law Symposium. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everything.
You're so welcome. I'm so happy to be here. Did you go?